Welcome to Your Life Legacy. And today we are going to be talking with someone that's got an unreal, amazing story that has inspired millions of people. And this man has done over 1,200 speaking gigs, has done over 17,000 one-on-ones with people and kids, changing their life. And you're a father, you have 4 kids, and I want to welcome Todd Sylvester to our podcast.
Yeah, Jackson, thanks for having me, man. It's an honor to be here, and I love that you're doing this. I think we need more things like this that are inspirational and are helping people, and the more we can talk, the more vulnerable we can be. I mean, what better way to touch the hearts of those that are listening right now and watching? And so thank you for reaching out. It meant the world to me, and I love helping people because I'm where I'm at because I'm standing on shoulders of giants. And so when someone like you who's brand new at this and reaching out, I mean, I'm all in.
I love that. And that kind of support means a lot too.
Yeah.
My first time I met Todd, he was speaking at an event, and I remember his message kind of like shook me to the core.
Oh,
And
thanks.
I think what you're doing is some of the most fulfilling and beautiful work that a human can do to impact the world.
I appreciate that.
Parts of your story, you have some amazing moments where you turn your mess into your message and you get to
Yeah.
see the impact that's had on other people. What do you feel like is your purpose, like your why?
I would say it's to ignite the belief in others to create a ripple effect for change. So many people that I work with have this belief that they're not good enough or they're never going to make it and no one's going to want to be with me. I'll never be successful or I'm stupid. And this narrative is holding people back. And I can relate so much with that because I had the same narrative, honestly. And so belief dictates the way we behave. There's an old Latin proverb that says, believe that you have it and you have it. And if you think about it, how simple that is, but how profound at the same time.
Uh,
And so that's what I love doing. My why is to help someone believe in themselves in such a way that they thought was never possible maybe before, and then it creates this ripple effect of change, not just in their own life, but everyone they come in contact with. And so that's basically what I'd say my purpose is.
yeah, which is so beautiful because you think about there's a couple different types of people, and when you think about the people you want to surround yourself with, pretty much you feel ignited when you're with the
Yeah,
right people and they bring this energy and fuel to you that really makes you believe more in yourself.
yeah,
And the ones that are, cheering you on, like to have more people like that in your life is
yeah,
is a giant blessing. And so
absolutely.
to have a life mission around being that support
Yeah,
and making people, cut through their ceiling of limitations
right.
is amazing.
Yeah,
And your story, like it starts at a very young age, and so I say let's just dive into it. And yeah, at any moment when you want to say
sure.
anything, go for it.
Yeah, well, I'll give some details, but maybe not a lot of details, and we can kind of see where that goes because it is a long story, actually. I started drinking when I was a young kid. I took my first sip of alcohol when I was 11 years old. I mean, think about
Wow.
11. I mean, and I didn't get drunk at 11, but I fell in love with kind of the rush of it. I knew it was wrong. Like there was a part of me going, okay, I shouldn't be doing this, but it was like, it was kind of like excited to the things you're not supposed to do. And I just kind of fell in love with that. And a few years later, I got introduced to marijuana and fell in love with that. And that's when things really started to explode in the substance abuse area for me. I started doing every other drug under the sun. You name it, I was doing it. I had this, when I was younger, Jackson, I had this all or nothing mentality. And I didn't really realize it, but looking back, I mean, when I would do something, I'm all in, good or bad. And basketball was my passion growing up. I wanted to be, you know, the basketball player. I wanted to make the high school team. I wanted to get a college scholarship. I wanted to play in the NBA. Had all these dreams and aspirations, and that's what I did. I was practicing 2 or 3 hours every single day. starting in sixth grade. Think about that. I mean, I knew, like, and sixth graders don't do that typically. And
No.
so here I
Oh
am
my God.
practicing basketball. Unfortunately, when I discovered alcohol and drugs, I fell in love with that, and I was all in. And so I'm doing these. I've got my dream of basketball. I'm over here partying, doing the thing, and not thinking anything of it. Like, these paths won't, intersect somehow. I'm a young, naive kid,
Yeah.
and
Are you in like junior high, high school when the partying really starts?
early junior high, and then beginning of high school.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it started young and early, and I grew up around alcohol all the time. We had alcohol in our house, and so it was no big deal. It was just, oh, this is what people do. We drink,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And so when I discovered that kind of opened up a really scary part of my life, if you will. But again, you know, I loved my childhood. I had parents who cared about me. I knew that, but we didn't talk about things. We didn't talk about drugs or alcohol or sex or anything like that. It was like that stuff you just kind of learned on your own and kind of figured things out on your own. And that was kind of the mentality of that generation back then is, you just don't talk about those kind of things, I guess. And but my parents were really good to me. My dad provided every opportunity for me to be the best basketball player I could possibly be. He poured a basketball court on the side of our house. He sent me to every basketball camp, the best that you could ever go to, spent all this money. So I had every opportunity to be the best basketball player I could possibly be. Unfortunately, like I said, drugs and alcohol started getting in the way. And um, I made the freshman team at Brighton. I didn't play much. I grew 8 inches from my freshman year to sophomore year, which was really
Wow.
good for basketball.
Yeah.
And then I ended up making the starting point guard my sophomore year. I got to play some varsity. I led the sophomore team in every category. We took first in state that year. My junior year, we took second in state. I led the team in every category. And then senior year, I was voted team captain with 2 other guys, and we took first in state again.
My gosh.
It was so this great run.
Yeah,
And
you have
again,
so much momentum.
oh yeah, and I'm feeling great about things until my senior year actually is when I noticed this voice in my head. And we all have this voice, it's this negative voice that tells you you're no good, you can't do it. And this voice really became really loud my senior year. It was, telling me you're pathetic, you're no good, no girl's ever gonna want to date you, you're a loser. And the only time I really felt somewhat normal is when I was partying. And I didn't realize it at the time, but at this point, I'm addicted to these things. And when my parents go out of town, I'm throwing a party at my house. I'm inviting the whole senior class. So I've got this reputation now as this partier, and I wore it as a badge of honor. And so that was my life. And I didn't see anything wrong with it. But my senior year, I became very depressed. I had thoughts of ending my life. I'd play a couple really good games, a couple really bad games. And I was a mess, honestly. And then, like I said, we took state my senior year, and I played the best game of my life that night. And everything kind of came together. I don't know why, it just did. It was just, I was really focused. And a week after that, I got offered a full ride scholarship. And so now I've got this scholarship in hand, and I thought, wow, that was one of my goals.
You've done
And
it.
now I've got it, I've done it. And then I just went off the rails with the partying because I thought, well, hey, I've got this. I'll just put that on the shelf for a minute, and I'm going to live it up. And I went crazy and did some really heavy, horrible things. And so, long story short, ended up practicing with the team I got the scholarship with, and then got cut and lost the scholarship because I was a mess. And when the coach took away my scholarship, which I totally get why he did, but I was devastated. I just thought, man, what am I going to do?
Did that take you by a big surprise?
It really did, but just because I didn't think it would ever get to that point. Looking back on it, yeah, no surprise. He did what he should have done. He should have cut me. But there goes my dream. And so in that moment, I wasn't thinking that. In the moment, I was thinking, man, you're being too harsh. Give me another chance, that kind of thing. So in the moment, I was devastated. I was just like, wow.
Do you remember how that interaction kind of happened?
It was quick. He pulled me into his office. We sat down just like this, and he looks right at me, says, "What's going on?" That's all he said. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm in trouble. That's what I thought in my head. And I'm like, hey, coach, I know I'm not playing well, I know I'm not showing up like I should, but I promise you I will work harder. I'll try better. And he just said, I've made the decision already. We're taking away your scholarship. I mean, it was a quick conversation. And I literally got on my knees and started crying and begging this coach, please give me this chance again, kind of thing. And he said, the decision's already been made. So it was a quick conversation and I was devastated.
So what were like the following days like? Do you remember what that looked and felt like?
A bunch of shame. I mean, shame on a level that, shame's a very low frequency energy,
Yeah.
but it's very powerful. And I felt so much shame. I thought, who does that? Who practices 2 or 3 hours every day since 6th grade on their childhood dream and you get it and then you blow it because you'd rather be getting high and getting with girls and doing that kind of thing. And again, just being so naive, you just think you're, untouchable when you're a kid. You just don't think things through. I didn't think it through. And I was devastated. I became very depressed. I became suicidal. I partied harder than I've ever partied. And really what I was doing was trying to numb out the pain that I was feeling. And then I tried out several other colleges and universities in Utah and out of state, got cut from every one of them. And then I found myself living with 5 guys down south in Utah, and we just partied. We lived I was attempting to go to school at the time, but I wasn't going to class. I was failing everything, and I was just a mess. Yeah.
And with a moment like that where like you started talking in high school, you felt like your belief was already crumbling down, even
Oh, yeah.
though it sounded like you had all the momentum in the world, but it seemed like you were living two types of lives.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so you probably had an interior like fight where,
Big time.
and then it sounds like that basketball identity kind of crushed and crumbled.
Yeah, it's a good point because that's how I would identify myself back then. Who are you? I would have said basketball player. No
Yeah.
hesitation. But see, that's a problem because that's not who I was even back then,
Mm.
but it's what I did.
Yeah.
Who I was made me good at basketball. That
Yeah.
makes sense. So when you identify yourself with something that's external and that goes away, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. So my identity, not only did I lose basketball, but I lost my identity. So when you lose that, you're like, well, what's the point? Why should I stay here? Why should I continue? So if I can't have this and that's who I thought I was, then I'd rather just be gone. Yeah.
And in a time where, do you feel like this was your rock bottom?
It felt like it, yeah. I mean, it got a little worse. But losing that scholarship, honestly, was the worst. But what's even worse than that, honestly, was afterwards feeling alone. It chokes me up to even think about it right now. Like that alone feeling when you feel like I've disappointed everyone, including my whole family's disappointed. My friends probably think I'm a joke. I was bragging to everyone, I got this scholarship, and now I've got to tell everyone, well, I don't have it anymore. And then they're questioning, did you really have it? And, I just felt like, again, shame. Shame is I'm a bad person. That's what shame is. And that is the killer. And, I deal this with my clients all day long. My clients who have shame, that's what's keeping them stuck. So I'm stuck in this shame, this victim mentality mindset. And I had all these great reasons to play the victim, honestly. But yet it wasn't serving me in the way that I would hope it would. It made things 10 times worse. And so just that alone feeling, man, I'm telling you, that was rock bottom, to be honest, for me.
Just feeling like you've let everyone down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be extremely tough. And like to go from where you were there to now, like what was the change? Was there a gradual change? Was there a light bulb moment? Like what?
There was a little of both, actually, Jackson. There was light bulb moments. There was these aha moments. There was these slaps in the face, like the universe slapping me saying, wake up, dude, what are you doing? And then there was a lot of gradual things in between all that. And I can share a little bit of that as well.
Love.
So I grew up in a family. We weren't religious. We didn't believe in God. We didn't talk about God. So that was never part of my upbringing at all. And didn't think anything of it, to be quite honest with you. I wasn't thinking that I needed to believe in a God or not. It wasn't even on my radar.
And did you grow up in Utah?
Yeah, which
Okay.
is interesting, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Matter of fact, if anything, I was anti-religion. Period. I was just like, no. And that's kind of how my dad's mentality around it was, and so I just kind of followed his lead. And yeah, I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't think anything of it. It just wasn't on my radar at all. And you know, I'll never forget. It was a Thursday. I'm living in that home I was telling you that we just partied in with these 5 guys, and I'll never forget. It was a Thursday, and I had this thought of, I'm done. I'm going to go end my life. I'm going to go home to where my parents live. I knew where everything was that I was going to take my life with, and I planned it all out. I thought it through, and I thought, I'm done. That voice in my head was going strong, like, you are the worst human being. You're pathetic. Again, who does this? And the shame, again, that shame is so heavy. And so I don't want to feel that anymore. And I thought, I'd just rather not be here. And so I'm driving down University Avenue, getting ready to get on the freeway. And right next to the freeway at the time was Utah Valley Community College. And it's now UVU, Utah Valley University. But I was attempting to go to school there at the time, but I wasn't going to class. I was failing everything. But we'd go hang out in the lunchroom, me and my buddies, at the same table during lunchtime every time. It's kind of our place to go sit and check out girls and gossip and BS with each other, that kind of thing. And as I'm getting ready to get on the freeway, for whatever reason, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go in there, and it's kind of like my last goodbye to my friends.
Oh.
So I pull into the parking lot, walk into that lunchroom, and sure enough, they're all sitting there. I sit down, just kind of give the nod like, hey, I'm here. And then I just sit there in my own mind thinking about what I'm going to go do, and everyone's just talking. And then there was these 2 girls next to me that started, there were these religious girls that would come sit at our table, and they drove me crazy. Like, I'm like, why do you guys keep come sitting with us? Why are you bugging us? And they were constantly trying to get us to come to their church and to, do things that they wanted. And we were constantly going, well, why don't you come party with us and that kind of thing. And so it was like this back and forth. And that went on for the whole school year. But this particular day, when I'm in my head thinking about what I'm going to go do, I overhear these 2 girls talking about fasting and prayer. Now, I've never heard that before. I don't know how to explain it, but that word fasting just hit me in the chest. I knew what prayer was. I honestly didn't know what fasting meant. And I was like, what are they talking about? And I just was trying to pick up on what they're talking. I couldn't really hear everything. And I thought, if they get up and leave, I'm going to go grab them. So they do. They stand up. They start walking away. And I thought, I'm going to go ask them. And I'll be honest, I'm scared for some reason. So I follow behind them. I tap them on the shoulder. They turn around. I said, hey, were you guys just talking about fasting and prayer? And they're like, yeah, why do you want to know? Because I've been so mean to these girls. So they're like, are you being serious here? And I'm like, yeah, I really want to know what's going on here. And they said, well, in our religion, we fast once a month. And the way that looks is we start with a prayer. We go the whole day without food and water, and we end with a prayer. And in my head, I'm thinking, what is the point of this? It sounded silly to me. And I even asked him, what's the point? And one of the girls says, if you want help from God. And I don't know how to explain it, Jackson, because again, I wasn't raised in any of that. And I just thought, is there a God? And would God even help me? Is that even a thing? And I just told him thanks, and I walked away, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go do that. I'm going to try that. So instead of going home and ending my life, I went back up to that house, that party house I lived in. And the next morning, I tried to do this fast. And that's what I did. I got, I didn't want my roommates to see what I was doing. So I got in this little teeny coat closet and closed the door. And I'd literally have to get on my knees because there's coats in the closet. And I just was in there, and all I said was, God, if you're there, I need help. That's all I said. And I walk back out of that closet, and I go, you're supposed to go the whole day without food and water, but it was the first time since ninth grade that I hadn't smoked a bowl or popped a pill in the morning or snorted a line or had a drink. And I was really struggling, to be honest. And I made it till about noon. And I'm like, I can't keep going here. So they said end with a prayer. So I went back in that same closet and got on my knees and I said, God, I just did this fast. If you're real, if you're there, I need help. And I waited and waited, thinking if God's real, he's going to show up. Nothing happened. And I felt like I waited for an hour. I'm so impatient. It was probably just a few minutes.
Yeah.
And nothing happened. To be quite honest with you, I was really disappointed. I'm like, well, that was a waste. And I got wasted right after that. I just started getting high. I started whatever, And it kept me from ending my life, but I was still having thoughts of doing that. And I don't know if that was a little spark that kind of helped me, but looking back on it, for sure it was. At the time, I'm just like, what do I do? I have nowhere to turn. All my friends party, my parents, my mom was addicted to opiates. My dad is a drinker. Where do I go?
Yeah.
So I'm just like, again, that alone feeling. It's a scary, scary place to be.
So you pretty much throw this like Hail Mary. You're
Yeah,
literally going
totally.
to see your friends for the last time, and then you run into these girls, and for some reason fasting hits you. Sounds like it hit you hard, and
It did. It
then
really
you're
did.
like, okay, I have this tiny bit of hope for some reason. I don't know what's gonna happen, and then you're kind of let down again. It sounds like,
Yeah. Yeah. I
and
was like this, oh, this might be it. And then nothing.
yeah,
And it was like, wow, again, you feel alone again. And, about a month later, I get a phone call from one of my friends who I played basketball with at Brighton. Haven't seen him since high school. And he says, hey, where are you at? And I said, I'm down here, so-and-so. He's like, I'm right by you. Would you come over? I said, sure. So I go over to his place and we just kind of catch up like this. We're just weather talking. And he starts saying all these good things about me. You know how like when someone pays you a compliment and you feel really weird? It's because you don't believe it. He was saying all these good things about me and I'm like, ugh. He's like, you're going to help so many people. You're going to help so many kids. He kept saying kids all the time. Like, what are you? And I'm going, what is this dude talking about? And I finally just stopped and said, I don't know why you're saying these things, but I'm a mess. And so I'd appreciate it if you stopped saying that. I literally stopped him and said, stop. And he goes, Todd, I didn't go to work today because there is a message I need to share with you. I'm going, what is going on here? What's wrong? He's like, nothing's wrong. And now I can tell him he's a little nervous, right?
yeah.
And he takes this deep breath and he says, Todd, the Lord came to me last night and says, we need you on our side today. I was like, what? I mean, I can't even explain, Jackson, what. I don't know if you can, I can describe it now like it was love. I felt this love on a level that I can't even describe in words. It's like every cell in my body was on fire, but in a good way. And it was so intense, it honestly scared me. Because I was like, what is my feeling? And I tell Rich, his name's Rich, I said, hey, I fasted about a month ago for some help. And he gets in my face and goes, this is your help. And I was like, what? And I'm just sitting here going, did that really just happen? And again, we're just sitting there, this awkward silence and just sitting. And I'm emotional. He's emotional. And I'm just sitting there going, what does that mean? Does that mean God's real? Does that mean there is a higher power? Does that mean, for whatever your listeners, whatever they may believe, universe, higher power, whatever, that's fine. I didn't believe in any of that. But here I am questioning, is that from God? Yeah. And it was so amazing. And so that was one of those, slap in the face moments. But man, I didn't realize how long that road was going to be from that point to getting to where I'm at now, And so yeah, but that was like this crazy, crazy moment for me.
Well, I think on both sides, like the courage of
Right?
Rich
Yeah.
to one reach out. How long it had been?
I can't remember. It had been about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
It's been a while. He got a scholarship at UC Davis, was playing basketball there. He was married. I think he either had a kid or one on the way. Anyway, he was out living his life,
Yeah.
doing what I thought I'd be doing. But, to have him take time to reach out and share something so profound and so powerful. And at times, he had no idea how I was going to take that.
Yeah.
Again, it sounds kind of like, what? Is that really real? But I'm telling you, that's exactly what happened. Exactly, to the point. And I just thought, what in the heck is this?
Uh,
And that opened the door for me to get to where I'm at today. And we can talk more about that too as well.
so we're talking about your friend and how courageous he was.
Yeah.
And I've found something interesting in my life when I go into conversations, kind of, there was an apostle that talked about, if you think going into a conversation that they're probably in one of the worst states they've ever been in their life, more than half the time you're correct.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like this guy just came in and lit you up,
Yep.
telling you how great you are.
Yep.
And your
Absolutely.
inner belief is like, you don't know a thing about me.
Yeah.
But he came with that courage and just dropped some major bombs on you.
Absolutely.
Like.
Yeah.
And so when your friend did that, what did that do to you?
Well, I was blown away. Again, it was so surreal. I'm like, is this real?
Yeah.
Like it was just one of those, like almost like an outer body experience, if you will. Like even to this day, this many years later, I sit there and go, what was that? But it was definitely the beginning of me turning my life around. And, he ended up finding this bishop who he thought I need to go talk to. And I'm like, I don't have a bishop. What are you talking about? What's that? He's like, well, no, you have a bishop. You just don't know it. Anyway, he gets me this appointment. He says, you need to go start seeing this guy. And you got to remember, this is before there's treatment centers on every street corner like there is today. There was no treatment centers back then. There was some, like the Betty Ford and things like that and stuff that, but around here there was nothing. I think there might have been Day Springs at the time. And so anyway, so he gets me this appointment. I'm like, why do I need to go see this guy? And he goes, you need to go tell him everything you've been doing. I'm like, there's no way I'm telling this stranger what I've been doing. Because it's not just about the drugs and the abuse and all that. It's all the horrible behaviors I was doing. The list went on and on and on. So anyway, I agree to go see this bishop, and I go see this guy. I walk in there, we sit down just like this, and he's like, tell me why you're here, and doesn't say another word. I'm just like, oh. So I kind of explain what happened with my experience with, fasting and prayer and what Rich had done. And he's like, he tells me I need to come tell you some things, and I don't know why I would do this, but here we go. And just on a whim. And I know nothing about any of this. Meaning I don't understand religion. I don't know anything. Here's some dude who somehow
telling your closet secrets.
I did, and I just unload on this dude. I speak to him for like 3 hours.
Wow.
And I unload. I tell him everything. It was almost like I just slowly started, and then I thought, here we go. And I'm thinking, what's this dude thinking of me? Because I'm telling him some pretty hairy stuff. And, we get done, and he goes, all right, I got a few things I want you to do. I want you to, can you do one prayer a day like you did when you were in that closet? I go, yeah, I can probably do that. And then he hands me some scriptures, and have you ever read these before? I go, no. He goes, can you read one verse a day? And I'm like, what's a verse? I honestly didn't know. He has to show me this is a verse. And anyway, I said, yeah, I could probably do that. He goes, I don't even care if you understand it. Just read one. I'm like, okay, I probably can do that. And then he goes, I want to meet with you every week for a year. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. And he goes, I know, hey, we're going to take it a week at a time, but that's my plan. I want to meet with you every week. And then he said something that really changed me in such a profound way. He goes, when we meet, I need you to be honest with me. And I go, I know what that means, but what do you mean? He goes, if you use, if you drink, if you steal, if you manipulate, if you tell me every week, You tell me everything. Just be honest with me. I said, well, I've told you everything already. That should be pretty easy. So I thought, but he taught me something so profound. I'll tell my clients this to this day. If you're honest with yourself, you'll never relapse. That's a bold promise. Think about that. Because in order for a good person, and we're all good people, to come over here to the drug world or the criminal world, how does this good person do that? They have to lie. They use a thinking error. They justify it. They minimize it. They rationalize it. He taught me that. I thought, wow. So I start meeting with this dude, and I start every week. I tell him, yep, I got high every day this week, or I stole more money from my dad, or I did this, and I hurt this person, and I yelled at this girl, and I'm just being really real with him. Yeah. And I'm still struggling. I'll be honest with you, Jackson. I'm still, that voice in my head still going strong. You're pathetic. You're no good. You'll never change. This ain't happening. And so I'm relapsing. I'm drinking. I'm just, it's a rough state. So even though I felt like I hit rock bottom, that rock bottom felt like it was a big, wide swath, if you will. And it takes me 8.5 months to tell this bishop I made it 3 days clean this week. 8.5 months before I can say that. Now, at this time, I'm a bartender, and that's not a good idea if you're trying to stop drinking, right? And so as a bartender, I'd get tips from the waiters and waitresses because I'd make their drinks for their customers. And then anyone that sat at the bar, right? I'd get tips from them, and I was great at manipulating them. I'd give them their first drink free, and I'd always get a big tip. And I'd get quarters, nickels, and dimes, and I'd keep those in the cup holders of my car. I used to buy pot with it. I'd fill my car up with gas. Well, at this 8.5 month mark where I made it 3 days clean, I'm leaving my neighborhood on a beautiful Saturday and the sun's shining. And I've got about $40 worth of change in my car. And as I'm leaving my neighborhood, out of the corner of my eye, I see this little girl selling lemonade. No big deal. I don't think anything of it. Drive right on past. And then I have this impression come over me. Hey, turn around and give her all the money in your car. I thought, whoa, yeah. So I thought that'll be cool.
That type of impression, like how did that happen? Like what do you think?
It was almost like a voice in my head. Hey, turn around. Hey, dude, turn around. The Greeks call it a kairos moment. A kairos moment is a transformational moment in time. It's the tap on the shoulder. Hey, this is going to change your life. Go give this girl all your money.
Wow.
But I didn't realize it in the moment, but that's the voice, like, turn around. So I did. I turn around, pull up. Little girl selling lemonade. I said, hey, how much? She said, I think she said 25 cents. She hands it to me. I set it on my dash, and I tell this little girl, okay, cup your hands like this. And I just start scooping all this money, and she's throwing it as fast as she can on the table. She's freaking out. She's getting emotional. I'm getting emotional. I'm going, what is going on here? And I give her all this money. It takes me like 10 scoops, dude. And then the last scoop, she throws it on the table and takes off into her house. And I'm thinking she's going to go tell her parents some guy just gave her $1 million. And as I pull away, I start to cry like I've never cried before in my entire life. Have you ever cried so hard you feel like you're cleansing your soul? This was a soul cleansing cry. I have to pull my car over, put it in park, I put my face in my hands, and I just sob. And in that moment, Jackson, I loved who I was. In that moment, I wanted to be clean. In that moment, I felt like I mattered. Think about that. It was, and it lit my soul on fire. It really, I was on fire. And again, one of my favorite quotes, it's on my wall at my office. It says, the most powerful weapon on earth is the human soul on fire, by Ferdinand Foch. It's so true though, right? And I was like, remember that all or nothing mentality I was telling you about? I thought, if that girl's there next Saturday, I'm giving her all my money. So the next Saturday I drive by. Sure enough, she's out there again. I pull up. She recognizes me. She starts freaking out like, oh my gosh, this is the money guy, right? I give her all my money, ironically, that I'm earning as a bartender. I'm giving her like $20 in quarters, nickels, and dimes. I'm giving her $30. I do this every Saturday for 2.5 months.
Oh my gosh.
And every time I pull away, I start to cry.
Well, what do you think it is that lit your soul up about this situation?
Because for the first time in my life, I actually was making a difference for someone else. I wasn't being selfish anymore. Addiction is a selfish issue. It's the disease of me. I'm going to rob you, manipulate you, cheat you to get what I want. And then I'll tell you I care about you. But for the first time, I actually did something that made this girl's probably decade, right? And to see that and to feel that, it was a feeling more intense than any drug I've ever taken in my life.
Oh, that's a big statement right there.
I'm not kidding you. Like, drugs can give you some really powerful feelings, but there's a couple feelings it can't give you, and it's peace and joy. It can't give you that. And you throw in love in there too. They all kind of are together. And it was so intense. One of my, I learned this from one of my clients, this quote, and I put it to my memory because I thought, how profound. And he said, I tried to find myself I could not see. I tried to find my God eluded me. I tried to find my brother. I found all three. And I thought, there it is. There it is.
Love your brother, and you'll find you.
So I found this. I was making this girl's, and I thought, I found all three in that moment, if that makes sense. Yeah. Despite all the things I've already kind of been through and all those great things with Rich and meeting with this bishop and all that stuff, which was all great. And I didn't realize it at the time, but this bishop was my rehab, truly. But in that moment, and then in every Saturday after that for the next 2.5 months, it was like a reminder of this is where it's at. So timeline, 8.5 months, 3 days clean, 2.5 months of giving all my money away to this girl. I decide after all that, I'm gonna go check out church for the first time in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
So had the bishop invited you to church?
I would have told him no, but he didn't, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have gone. I had to go when I was ready, and I think he probably sensed that. Because I was really, again, I'm going through this quickly, but I was really defiant with this guy in the beginning. It was a tough go. And so I decided to go by myself. I'm sitting in the very back corner. I thought, I'll stay here 5 minutes. I'm going to bounce if this sucks. And I overlook on the other side of the chapel, and there's that little lemonade girl with her mom. And she sees me.
Oh, my gosh.
And she's like going like this, and there's the guy, Mom, and I'm like, going, oh my gosh, my heart starts to pound. I'm like, what are the odds, right? Yeah. And I end up staying. And when it was over, here they come walking over towards me. My heart's pounding. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I say? What's going on? And the mom's crying. She hugs me, and she's in my ear, and she says, thank you so much for what you've done for my daughter. I said, no, you have no idea. This was for me. But you're welcome. And she goes, no, you don't understand. She was saving for a trampoline. You put her over the top. She got her trampoline. She thinks you're like the greatest thing ever. And I go, again, I'm glad, but this was for me. And then they go, we have a favor to ask you. And what's that? She goes, on Wednesday, there's a daddy-daughter date. Would you take her as a date? And I'm looking at her, what? I go, what about her dad? Well, we were divorced when she was younger, and he's not a part of her life. She would really like to go. And little does the mom know, she's asking this drug addict alcoholic to take her 4th grade daughter to this daddy-daughter date. They just think I'm some good dude who goes to church and gives money at a lemonade stand. They have no clue of my life. And so, and her name's Lindy. She's standing right there. And how do I say no? I go, sure. I'm freaking out. I'm like, how is this possible? So Wednesday comes, I go pick this girl up, don't even know her. We go up to Big Cottonwood Canyon at this picnic site. All the dads are up there already with their daughters. We're late. So we go into this little setting. I know nobody. And the whole time I'm going, why did I say yes? Why did I say yes to this? I'm feeling so awkward. Well, they start playing games, and one of the games is, well, how well do you know your daughter? How well do you know your dad? Like favorite color and food. And I'm like, I look at her, I go, sorry, we're not going to be able to do this. She goes, let's just guess. Had I not been there, dude, I wouldn't have believed this. We almost get almost every answer correct. I'm not kidding you. We're like high-fiving each other. People think we're cheating. And I'm like, we're not cheating. I'm like, it was so surreal. And it just hits me like I'm used to doing some of the most horrible things the night before, waking up hungover with throw up all over me. And here I am with this pure innocent girl, and we're having hot dogs and Kool-Aid. I mean, I'm just like, am I in the Twilight Zone? Is what I'm thinking. Yeah. So they gather everyone in. They're going to say a blessing on the hot dogs and Kool-Aid, which I thought, that's weird. Why would you bless hot dogs? Like, is there something wrong with the hot dogs? Like, why? It was just the weird. Like, okay, you got to remember, I'm an infant in all this. I know nothing.
And
So,
how old are you at this time?
I think I'm 22.
22.
Might have been 23.
Yeah.
Timeline's a little fuzzy, but yeah. So anyway, this guy starts saying a simple little prayer on a blessing on the hot dogs and Kool-Aid. And it was in that prayer when my life changed forever. I heard this voice in my head again, as loud as we're talking here. Todd, you're in the right place, doing the right thing. You made an impact on this girl's life that she'll never forget, and I love you. And I lose it. I lose it in this prayer. I mean, the prayer's over. They're looking at me, dude, relax, man. It's just hot dogs. I go, sorry. And Lindy's like, are you okay? I'm like, these are happy tears. And it was in that moment, Jackson, that I said, I will never put poison in my body ever again. And I'm going to do my best to be honest, to have integrity, to be accountable, and to help people for the rest of my life. That's what I'm going to dedicate it to. I've been clean now for 34 years since that time. And after that, I wanted to help kids. So I had this idea of, I was in my room jotting down some ideas. How can I help kids? Because I want that feeling again of what I did with the lemonade stand. How can I go help kids?
Yeah.
And remember Rich telling me, I didn't put it together until later, but he was like, you're going to help a lot of kids. And well, I'm in my room and I start drawing a stick figure dog. My nickname in high school is Sly Dog. So I draw this stick figure dog and all this flood of inspiration comes through my mind. That's it. I'm going to create an animated cartoon character. His name's Sly Dog. His motto will be drug free. That's me. And I'm going to go around to every elementary school in the state of Utah. And I'm going to teach kids to believe in themselves, stay away from drugs, and to help other people. And it was amazing. I did that for the next 5 years straight, spoke to over 350,000 kids.
Gosh.
And then parents would come up to me and go, my son or daughter loves your program. Would you meet with them one-on-one? Never done that before. And I'm like, well, yeah, sure. And I realized I had a knack for it. And now I've done over, I think it's getting closer to 18,000 sessions since then. 18. That's how it all started, dude. And that led to me counseling people, mentoring people, speaking, ended up writing a few books, got a podcast. It's nuts. And here I am sitting with you. Are you kidding me? What? Are you kidding? All because I took a drink at 11. Think about that for a minute. Yeah. Because I took a drink at 11, and luckily I'm one of the fortunate ones that made it through it, I'm sitting here talking to you today. I really believe life happens for us. I wouldn't change a thing, because had I not had that drink, I wouldn't be talking to you today. It's crazy to think about that, but it's true.
Totally. It's so interesting where your trials or trials afflicted on your life happen, and where they can take you and what you can learn from them. Absolutely. And
they're gifts. I often say to my clients, addiction and adversity is the wake-up call to your greatness. It's as if the universe is slapping us going, dude, you're better than this. You're better than this. Stop playing small, start playing big. But I had this belief again. Drugs weren't my problem, Jackson. It was the belief system that I was a loser, that I was no good, that I'll never make it. That's the problem. So that was the real work. Stopping the drugs and alcohol, okay, that's one thing. And that was challenging, but it was not near as hard than changing that belief from I'm a worthless person to I actually matter and I'm good to the core. That took years.
So what advice would you give in that realm? There's so many people that have such low self-esteem and need that help. And, with working with 18,000 people and building this self-esteem, what things can people implement to change how they think about themselves?
Great question. And probably the most important question you could ask anybody. Because again, all addictions are the same. At the end of the day, it all comes back to a belief system that person has about themselves. The most powerful force in the human psyche is the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. And the psyche is the mind, spirit, and soul. So if I say it this way, the most powerful force in the mind, spirit, and soul is the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. And so what I do with a client or anyone listening is Identify the story that's holding you back. What is the story? What is it? My story was, I'm a loser. No one's want to be with me. No girl will ever date me. You know, I have, who practices 2 or 3 hours a day and then loses a scholarship because he'd rather get high? A criminal, a loser, a pathetic human being. And, and the list goes on. And I had this long list of the story I was telling myself. That's where the pain was coming from. I numbed it out with alcohol and drugs. The real pain was the story. So anyone listening to this, if you really want to get real, write down the narrative that you tell yourself. What are the negative things you say? And this is a very soul-searching exercise, to be honest. If you do it right and you get real with yourself, what is it that you're saying? And most people have a long, long list of these negative things that they tell themselves. And it creates this narrative and a story. And that creates our belief system, which creates our world, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Would you have them write it down?
Yep. Write it down. 100%.
Just is it like horrific moments or horrific?
It's going back all the way back to your childhood even.
Yeah.
I used to have this belief I looked funny. Like truly, like I believed I looked funny because I had people laughing at me because I was so skinny. So it created a belief like, oh, I must look funny. So on my list, I would put, I look funny. I'm stupid. I'm no good. That's what you would do. Do a soul searching. Go back to your past. What are the things you're still holding on to? Because we all do it on some level. Everyone has a list, and it's pretty long. And it's hard because you look at this list and go, ouch, this is how I talk to myself. This is what's holding me back. But what's so good about this process is you get to see it. This is the enemy. There it is. What are you going to do now? Now that you've identified it, now we can have some power now. Because
boxing ring.
Exactly right. Because now I know my enemy. This is what needs to change. And what the way it changes is you take each negative and you flip it and add your name. So if the first one says, I'm stupid, I would put, I, Todd, am brilliant. I create another list. That becomes my daily affirmations. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people roll their eyes when you say affirmations. But let me tell you something. And this is a scientific fact. And I got 34 years to back this up. That, yes, affirmations work, but it's not everything that makes it work, if that makes sense. That's a starting point.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So you have to, when you say something, you have to feel it when you say it. So if I look in the mirror and say, I, Todd, am brilliant, I have to say it with feeling behind it. That's how you open up the subconscious self-image, is the feeling piece. So if I look in the mirror and just, kind of randomly, I, Todd, I'm brilliant, and it's really low level energy, my subconscious, my psyche is just going to go, this is stupid. But if I put some energy behind it, so you say it with feeling, then you have to visualize it. Then I'm going to close my eyes, sit down, and visualize myself being a brilliant, powerful, strong human being. I'm going to visualize it throughout that day. I'm just going to focus on the day. That's it. Okay? That's all I'm going to do. Then I'm going to go act as if until I become. I'm going to be the message. I'm going to be who I say I'm going to be. So how would a brilliant, powerful, strong human being act today? I'm going to look people in the eye. I'm going to shake their hands. I'm going to be the first person to pick up the garbage over there. I'm going to be the first person to help that guy who's got no one around him who looks alone. I'm going to let people in traffic. I mean, little simple things. I'm going to be that guy. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to reflect. Am I the person that I said I was going to be? Do I have the stack of evidence that backs it up? Then when I go, yeah, look at all this evidence I did today. So when you have the evidence that backs it up, that's the formation of a new belief system. But it takes time. It does. Everyone's a little different, but it
took you a couple of years, right?
Well, a lot of these things started to go away quickly because I was really putting some work into it, but it took, you look back and go, wow, that was quite the journey, And I'll be honest with you, I still wrestle with some belief systems today, and I still work on them.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, that formula, if you will, it works. It works. And anyone, and this is so popular now, it's all over the internet and everything, but I saw this on the Chris Williamson podcast, and he was quoting Dipin Parmar. And it goes like this: the magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. And I thought, that is so perfect. We all want this magic, but we don't want to put in the work for it. Everyone listening to this who has a belief system they're struggling with is going, man, I want to change it. But okay, great. Are you willing to put in the work? Because I promise you, if you do, you'll get it. You don't put in the work, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
So pretty simple. We understand that logically, but I get it. Change can be scary. Change can be hard. But we're all capable of making a change in our lives and doing something different. It's never too late. It really isn't. I've worked with some people in my practice that are, 60, 70 years old who have been living a life of, criminalities and all these things, and watching them change, and they did it. Why? Because they put in the work. It's amazing. Human beings are astonishing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're amazing. And I really mean that. Like the stuff we can do when we decide to put our mind to it. And yes, we need help from people along the way, absolutely. But man, people are astonishing.
I completely agree on that. And if there's anyone hesitant where they want like more clarity of like I'm a 5 out of 10 on self-esteem, and I would like to make it better, but like my life's busy. Like what would you tell them?
Wow. That is it. And I'm going to get choked up here. So I had a mentor in my life, Rich. Go back to Rich. He mentored me, and he's my mentor to this day. And I'll never forget when he told me I need to have a morning routine. And I know people, morning routine, it's popular to say you got a morning routine.
Buzzword.
I'm here, and I'm proud to say I was doing this before it ever got popular, before there was, social media and stuff. And what I found is this morning routine became my morning medication. And what this routine basically was, it's about me connecting. It's about me getting up early enough to where I can connect with a higher power, where I can connect with myself, and where I get myself dialed in. There's a famous saying out there that says, if you win the first hour of the day, you win the day. If you lose the first hour of the day, you spend the rest of the day looking for it. How true that is. So I get up, I'm not kidding you, 4:15, Monday through Friday, and I work out and I do my hour of power. I call it hour of power, where I work on my mind and my heart, and it's quiet, no phones, no emails, nothing. And I'm connecting with that silence. Within each of us, there's a silence as vast as the universe. And when we remember that, we remember who we are. It's so powerful. And so we do have time. Are we willing to make the time is what it comes down to. You're right. We're so busy. Life is busy. But sometimes often we have to take a step back and, if you will, disconnect for a while. It's healthy to do that. And it's hard to do. I get it. It's hard. I'm not trying to say this is so easy, but again, if we're willing to put in the work, we will discover the magic that we say we want. Yeah. So that morning routine has been the single greatest gift, Jackson, I've ever given myself. And I'm so thankful to my mentor who showed me the way.
And so you pretty much, you get up, you find the energy to work out, and you push your brain through that, and you do it.
Yep.
Then you talked about working on your mental and your heart.
Yeah.
How do you do that? So you talked about diving into it, getting in the gym, get your body moving, changing your state. Yeah. And then how are you specifically changing your mental and your heart where you're winning that first hour?
Yeah, it really is. So I have a personal declaration that I've written about my life that I read every morning as part of this hour of power. I will sit and visualize it. I'll close my eyes and visualize me being that person. And then I've been reading from this book called Mind is the Master by James Allen. It's his complete treasury, all his works into one big book. I mean, he's famous for writing As a Man Thinketh.
Yeah.
It took me 6 years the first time to get through this book. It's that thick. And it's unbelievable. I'll spend a half hour reading that. And when I say reading, I'm studying it. I'm marking it up. I'm looking up words, right? And this whole time, my phone's off. Nothing's bothering me. I'm just in the zone. And then when I'm done with that, I spend about 10 minutes in the silence where I just sit and listen. I just listen, and I shut everything down. And then the last 5 minutes, I call, there's a principle called, if you want to be, give it away. It's the most powerful principle, in my opinion, on the planet. If I want to be happy, go give away happiness. So I will write a letter of appreciation, drop it in the mail to someone. And so I'm writing, 5 letters, 6 letters a week, dropping them in the mail and sending them to people, just telling them thanks for all you do and for inspiring me. So I'm giving it away.
It's amazing.
And when you give, you get. So I do that for a whole hour. And I don't know how to explain it, but it softens my heart. It strengthens my resolve. It creates love. It creates joy. It destroys anxiety and depression. The list goes on. I could tell you all these things.
Outward.
It's amazing. And I get this all the time. And I'm not saying this to brag because, again, I'm just putting in the work and I just listened to someone who told me what to do.
Yeah.
So remember, I'm standing on shoulders of giants. But I get people all the time, how do you know all these quotes? How do you know this? How do you have all this energy? How are you able to do this? And I always go back to this hour of power. I'm not kidding you. And I get emotional when I think about it. It's like it has been the single greatest thing in my recovery. I mean, by far. So those are the things that really help me kind of stay focused, stay in line, and it gives me the energy to be able to not only help myself, but then to help other people throughout the day.
Yeah. To help the listeners understand like who Todd Sylvester is, like what is your declaration that you tell yourself?
It's quite long. You know how businesses have mission statements for their business? This is kind of like my mission statement, but a declaration's a little different. When you declare something, you're acknowledging you possess it already.
Yeah.
So when I'm writing out this declaration, I could read it. I can get on my phone if you want me to read it, but it's a long declaration. It's about how I want to show up in life, but I'm stating it as if I'm already doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's so profound because I really believe that words matter and words have power.
Yeah.
If you speak it, you create it. And so I declare it. I'm declaring to God, the universe, and myself, this is who I am, and this is how I'm showing up today. And then at the end of the day, I go back to kind of the same thing I said earlier. Then I reflect on the day. Did I show up like I said I was? And most of the time I can say yes. There's obviously moments where I don't, and I got to be better. Yeah. And I'm trying to find that stack of evidence that I am who I say I am.
I think that's super important because, there is the talk about starting with affirmations, but I think the reflection at the end of the night is something that's so powerful, and you can see,
totally.
when you can stack those wins, I think that's where the change really happens. It's like, you know what, I went out to the world trying to be like this, and I told myself I'm gonna be like this today, and then you see these little wins. It's like, you know what, I'm slowly becoming what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that brings real power to your identity, I believe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's a couple things that I've been wanting to talk about because like what you said about crying to the point where it's cleansing your soul.
Mm-hmm.
I think people don't get that much of that opportunity in their life. How do you feel like you could help people get more of those cleansing their soul moments?
Yeah. Well, it's a very vulnerable thing to do. A lot of times we don't want to be vulnerable. Vulnerable can feel a little scary. I mean, the simple answer, I think, is to get out of yourself and go help someone. That's what I learned at the lemonade stand. If you want to give it away. It's ironic. I gave away my money to this little girl at the lemonade stand that I earned as a bartender, and I got my life in return. Think about that. That's crazy to think that way. That's what happened, but that's really what happened. Yeah. And so I think sometimes we got to get out of ourselves a little bit and go make a difference in someone's life. And then obviously a lot of times when we're struggling, the last thing we want to do is go help someone. I get that too. I totally understand that. And so I think it's about being vulnerable. Like if we were tight friends and I'm struggling, I got to get vulnerable and call you up and say, Jackson, I'm struggling, man. Can I lean on you for a second? Mm-hmm. Can I come talk to you? That's a scary thing to do. It's a vulnerable thing to do. But here's the thing with vulnerability. When vulnerability goes up, happiness goes up. When vulnerability goes down, happiness goes down. So the more vulnerable we can be, the more happiness we're going to experience in life. So me getting vulnerable with you and saying, hey, I need your help. And then we talk, right?
Yeah.
And I walk away from that talk feeling 10 times better. See, my happiness level just went up. Why? Because I got vulnerable. And thanks to you for listening to me and giving me some good advice, right? And you think about it. We never will push someone away if they get vulnerable with us. We're going to say, yeah, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
But we think on the other end, oh my gosh, Jackson will think I'm weird if I call him up and tell him you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So vulnerability to me is the key to change.
And I think about the person on the other side receiving that call.
Yeah. Right?
There's been times when someone's been vulnerable with me and they talk about these things. And if I can ever feel like I've added any type of help to their life,
Yeah.
like the amount of fulfillment that I get on that. And so
Yeah.
when you cut out vulnerability, I think you're not only screwing yourself, you're screwing everyone, and the opportunity to, one, like deepen your relationship to a different level,
Yeah.
but two, what an opportunity to feel fulfilled on both sides
Yeah.
and really feeling connected. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm 100% there. Vulnerability is like one of the biggest keys to a successful relationship in any sort of the word relationship. And
Right.
I think a moment where you can show, God's love to other people as, being an imperfect human and being able to be there for people is so amazing.
Yeah.
Um, with your journey, like who is God to you?
God is love. Simple as that.
Mm.
A lot of people struggle with the word God, and I understand that. But we all can agree on love. Because that's the God I want to worship. God who loves. So, does that make sense?
Mm.
That's how I see it. Like you and I talking right now, I feel love. And so I can honestly say we're having a God experience. So that's to me the most simple yet most powerful way to look at it, in my opinion. I think we try to overcomplicate this whole thing. I really do. We have all these thoughts, and all these different religions tell you this is who God is and what it looks like. And at the end of the day, where we can all agree on and have common ground is love. God is love.
I love that. I think you've brought that love to a lot of people, and I know you have numerous like experiences and feeling of, what, this work I'm doing is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time that you talked about you went to a prison, and I feel like that story is so cool, and I'd love for everyone to be able to hear that, because that's one that shook me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got invited by Toastmasters to come speak at the Utah State Prison, and it was I was very excited, but at the same time, wow, I've never done this before at the prison, right? I've spoken at other places like, Salt Lake Youth Detention hundreds of times, but never the prison. And so I go out there. It's what you think prison looks like. I have to go through all these metal doors, and there's barbed wire fences, and I have to go through a metal detector. They did a background check on me, and when I get there, there's 3 guards, and they're like, hey, if something goes down in there, make sure you're by one of us. And I'm like, dude, is there something going to go down in here? Like, why are you telling me this? And like, no, we just have to tell you this. And I go out there. It's a place called Promontory, and there's this cinder block wall, wood floor gymnasium that we're all in. There's 120 inmates in there. And I walk in there, and it's really intimidating. I walk in there, and they're already sitting in there. And they all just turn to look at me as I'm walking up to the front of the room. And I'm like, wow, this is intense. And they had 3 inmates get up before me and share 5 minutes of their story. They want me to take an hour and 15 minutes. So these 3 guys get up, they do their thing. The very last one, the last thing he said, if you don't own your story, it owns you. I thought, wow, I'm taking that from him. And I even told him, I said, dude, I love that. I'm stealing that from you. And right when he said that, though, I was okay. I'm like, that's all I'm going to do. I'm just here to own my story. That's it. So I start sharing my story to all these 120 inmates. And by the way, they were all sitting up straight. They're all listening. They're not talking to their neighbor. They're not sleeping. I'm like, this is unreal. They're in this. And so I'm sharing my story, and I'm about, 30 minutes into it, and I have this impression again. I've learned to listen to these impressions, ask him this question. So I kind of stopped what I was doing. I go, I got a question for you. How many of you in here, by the show of hands, are criminals? Every hand goes up. And as their hands were raised, I said, why are you lying to yourselves? Why are you lying? And they slowly start to go down, and they're looking at me like, dude, we're in prison. What are you talking about? We're criminals. And I said, how many of you by the show of hands committed a crime yesterday? Raise it. Luckily, no one raised their hand. I said, how many of you committed a crime yesterday? Raise your hand. Not one hand goes up. And I said, see, you're lying to yourselves. And then I asked them these questions. How many of you today have been honest so far? Today, just today. Looked like every hand went up. How many of you have done the right thing when no one was looking today? Every hand goes up. How many of you have followed all the rules today here in prison so far? Every hand goes up. And then I said, how many of you have shown respect to your cellmate today so far? Every hand goes up. And I said, see, you're lying to yourselves. You call yourself criminals, but you just told me you're honest, you have integrity, you're respectful, and you're caring. In Jackson, had I not been there, I wouldn't have believed it myself. I got a 3-minute standing ovation. I'm not kidding you. Like, they stood up and were hooting and hollering, getting emotional. I'm getting emotional. I'm thinking I'm being punked, man. I'm like, this is real. There's a guy over here waving me down. Can I come give you a hug? He comes up, gives me this hug. And when they sat down, I looked them all in the eye with all the energy I could give them. And I said, what follows I am follows you. And when I was done, all 120 of them came up, shook my hand, hugged me, and we said, we've never had anyone tell us that before, ever. Again, the most powerful force in the human psyche is the story you tell yourself about yourself. We got to be careful how we talk to ourselves. It was amazing. It was probably one of the most, I've done, thousands of speaking events, and that experience was next level for me because of the connection in that room. It was amazing. And that listening to that prompting again, I was like, man, thank you, God, for that inspiration. Because I've never done that before. I wasn't planning on.
Spot.
I wasn't. It was on the spot, and it just came to me. It was the craziest thing. Well, where does that come from? It comes from God, in my opinion. And who's God? God's love. Because I said it to these guys because I love them.
I think that story, you probably changed their identity in that moment where they finally realized, and this could have been 20 years where they have thought every single day, I'm the low of the low, I'm a criminal.
Yeah. I read the other day out of James Allen's book, that book I read from in my Hour of Power, a spoken sentence can turn the tides of history. And I know I was getting emails from their wives after I spoke at the prison, because they get to email, they're in prison. So they're emailing their wives, oh my gosh, this dude came in. And I was getting all these emails for months and months afterwards. And it was crazy. I was just like, wow, a spoken sentence. What follows I am follows you. Stop calling yourself criminals. You're not criminals. You've done criminal behavior. We know that, but you're not that today. So stop talking like that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So it hits the wives, hits the family. Something really cool with your story, you've made your type of mess your message, right? And you've owned your story.
Yeah.
What is that like with raising a family? Because I feel like there's a lot of families where it's like, okay, let's come off like we're these perfect humans.
Yep.
And when my kids make a mistake, like, still keep it.
Yep.
Like, don't. So I'm curious how that's been for you.
It's a great question, and I think it's a very important one, and the listeners listening need to hear this. I work with a lot of kids in my private practice, and without fail, they'll share some really heavy stuff with me, and I'll say, have you ever told your parents that? And they're like, never. I'm like, why? My parents have never done anything wrong. I'm like, well, yes, they have. They just haven't told you. And here's a problem, is if these kids think they can't go to their parents because their parents have lived this perfect life and everything needs to be perfect, they're now afraid to even say anything. I'm struggling, or this is what happened, or this is what I've done. And so luckily, again, my mentor was like coaching me along the way. And when my kids all turned the age of 12, I took them on an individual date, And I shared my full story with each one of my kids at 12.
Wow.
I told them everything. And I told them, I was just really vulnerable with them. And I said, my expectations for you are to not ever go down the road I went down. But I also want you to know you can come tell me anything. And I did individual dates with my kids on a monthly basis. So I was building a relationship with them.
Yeah.
And the other thing my mentor taught me, which was so amazing, he said, you need to celebrate when your kids tell you the truth. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, when they tell you the truth, you give them a hug and say, awesome, man, thanks for telling me the truth. Because what usually happens, kid tells the truth, hey, I just, ruined the car. I just crashed the car. It's like, what? We get all upset and right. So what we're doing is we're training our kids that if I go tell the truth, I'm going to get some backlash. It's going to be painful. But thankfully, my mentor taught me when they tell the truth, I'll hug them and say, thank you for telling me the truth. Now they connect of telling the truth is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean there, doesn't need to be consequences. There's some things, there's some consequences here, and we can discuss those too, right? And so,
but more in a positive light where they feel secure.
Yeah, we tell our kids, hey, be honest. I want you to be honest. And then they tell us, they get honest with them. We get all mad at them for, telling them where they screwed up. Yeah. And now they're going, I'm not telling my dad that again. I'm not talking to him again. Right?
Yeah.
So if we can create this relationship by spending time with them on an individual basis, 4 kids, 4 dates a month, kind of thing. Obviously you're doing your family things, but if you can take them individually and talk to them and sit down and go get some lunch and just shoot the crap with them, come on. Right? It's those little things that will go a long way. So that has been a game changer. So speaking to your kids, and I didn't give them all the gory details about my past, but I let them know, hey, your dad had his struggles. Mom's had her struggles. We're here for you. We're not perfect. Awesome. So if you screw up, guess what? We don't care. What we do care is if you try to hide it and then you're suffering alone. We're here to help you. Yeah. We're not going to judge you. And so I'm grateful that I've been through what I've been through because it's easier for me to see both sides of the fence. Yeah. I think if, a lot of people who maybe live a pretty sheltered life, if you will, everything's perfect. Yeah. It's almost like we think that's how we have to live. And then now we're afraid to talk about it.
I think kids, like the normal upraising of a kid is they grow up thinking their parents are these heroes.
Yep.
And then the older they get, they realize that they're totally imperfect.
They're just normal.
And then that heroism goes away. But I think if you start with letting them know, this is where I came from, with your story, it's you came from there and you're here. That's a hero. That's a hero's journey.
For sure.
And
100%.
So I love that. Starting with real you as soon as it makes sense.
And again, any parent listening to this, it doesn't mean go share all your gory details that you've done wrong, but be real with them in the sense of, hey, I want to be honest with you of some things I struggled growing up and where I've been. And know that you can come to me if you have these same things, or if you screw up, you can come to me. I will celebrate when you tell the truth. I remember telling my kids, I'll never be disappointed, or I'll never get mad at you if you tell me the truth.
Yeah.
And they're like, and then I had to prove it. I have to, where's the stack of evidence? Yep. So they'd come tell me the truth. If they were younger, I'd get on my knees and hug them and say, thank you so much for telling me the truth. Inside I'm going, man, they just ruined the couch with a Sharpie, But then there can be some consequences, right? Because again, they have to learn from their mistakes. So it's not like they get away with it. Yeah. It's like, hey, thanks for telling the truth. Okay, what should the consequence be? Yep, you need to help pay for this new couch, or whatever it may be, kind of thing. And it really, I wasn't perfect at that, but I got really good at it. And again, I'm standing on shoulders of giants, thanks to my mentor who showed me the way.
One quick story. I was in high school, and I remember watching all my friends with their families, and we were punks a little. We weren't crazy into bad things or anything, but we would do we'd swear, we'd do little dumb things. And then I noticed that I saw my friends and I felt like they would be fake with their family.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the best things that ever happened to the relationship with my family and myself, it started with my mom and I came up to her one day. I was like, Mom, all my friends, like, I feel like they're not genuine with their family, and like I care about you,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I'm an idiot sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I made this rule with her, which was, there's gonna be some weekends where I do something dumb and I don't want to tell you, but I want you in my life and I want you to know me in like all aspects. And so I made the rule that if I do something dumb that you would normally not like, I'm going to give you the opportunity to hear it if you won't get mad at me.
Right.
And so this was like this little contract thing that I
I
made up
like
with
it.
her.
Yeah, I like it.
And so I tested it out a couple times, and it turned out to be one of the most beneficial things because I
Mm-hmm.
never had to hide who I was, even in my like very dumb moments of my life. And
Yeah.
it built this
Yeah.
safety net of,
Mm-hmm.
like we know who we
Yeah.
are.
Right.
And
That's awesome.
like of course every once in a while she'd get mad at me after a little bit, but it was the concept that and the principle that we're gonna be genuine and this love's real, and I hope you love me after I tell you this.
Yeah.
And
Right. No, that's awesome.
it was really cool.
Yeah.
Um, just to kind of wrap things up, I mean, you went through an amazing recovery story, and um, there's so many people that struggle with this. And you start with vulnerability, like being willing to ask for help.
Yeah.
For people struggling out there, anyone listening that might be into what tomorrow's going to be the first day of being sober, or you
Mm-hmm.
know
Yeah.
a couple months into it,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to them, and what would help them the most, do you feel?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I first want to say, anyone who's struggling, I love you. I know that sounds maybe even a little cheesy, but it's the truth because I've been in your shoes, and it's not fun. It feels like you're alone, but you're not alone. You really truly am not alone. One of my favorite things I teach my clients on the very first session is, I have them read this quote above my head in my office. It says, "The most delightful surprise in life is to suddenly recognize there's nothing wrong with you." And that's what I would tell you. There's nothing wrong with you despite your struggle, right? You may be telling yourself a story that there is all these things bad about me and I'm no good. To your core, you're good. You may have stuff you need to work on, obviously, but at the same time, I just want you to know you're good. I just think we're so hard on ourselves. We just beat ourselves up so much. And I would just say, guys, you got to start catching that and start telling yourself the truth. And again, that vulnerability piece is huge. If you're struggling, reach out to someone and tell them. The late Mr. Rogers, he said, if you can mention it, you can manage it. So mention it to someone, whoever it may be, a friend, a parent, a leader, a coworker. It doesn't matter. Tell someone. And I know it's scary. I know it can be scary. But think about if someone was coming to you and asking you, saying, "Hey, I'm struggling." Would you shun them away? Would you? You wouldn't. You would hug them and embrace them. They're going to do the same thing for you. So that would be my advice: is you get vulnerable and you talk to someone. Let them know why you're hurting. And again, I can't stress enough, you're not alone. I really do care about you. I wish I could help everyone in this entire world. I know I can't, but I wish I could. But at the same time, I'm going to do my part and I'm going to do my best. And know that if I can make it through these difficult times, so can you.
Yeah.
You can too. I'm no different than you. I just listened to some people when I went and got the advice. I listened and I applied. I listened and I applied. And I failed on my face, tripped over and fell on my face all the time. Still do. But that's what I would say. And again, at the end of the day, I love you.
That's so good. That's powerful. And what resources are out there that you think more people should know about that don't know?
Well, I think nowadays, the information we have, we're information overload.
Totally.
Podcasts are amazing. Get all kinds of amazing things off podcasts, this being one of them, obviously. There's websites, there's books. The list goes on. I don't know how I could list them all, but there's if you want help, it's so amazing that we have all this information at the touch of our fingers, you know. So there are tons of resources out there. Many of you know that, but again, it's about us applying it and utilizing it and doing the best that we can to make that happen.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And we haven't talked about your book. Do you want to do a quick, or, take
Yeah,
your time?
it's just basically my story.
Okay.
You know, I believe you can be recovered from addiction. I know I go against the grain. A lot of people think you'll be in recovery the rest of your life. I believe you can be recovered and move on and go live your life and do what you were born to do. And it wasn't to be stuck in this addiction the rest of your life. And so it's just really about my story and kind of everything we talked about, but a lot more details obviously in it. So yeah, it's an easy read, but I think it's a powerful read, and I'm really proud of the book.
It's awesome.
I had a lot of help writing this book. There was a lot of people, and they know who they are, that made this possible. And because I'm not a writer, and I had a lot of help writing this, and so I'm grateful for them that helped me and showed me the way.
Yeah. I mean, your story is unbelievable. There's actually a super popular Mormon message about your life, and it's one of the most viewed Mormon messages out there.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts.
What does that mean to you?
I'm just kind of blown away. It's like I feel blessed. I feel grateful. You know, again, I pinch myself sometimes going, look where I'm at. Look what I get to do. Yeah. But again,
why do you think it was so popular? Like, why did that one resonate?
Because it's not about going to church. It's not about you better do these things. It's about someone who's struggling, who reached out to a higher power in their moment of need, and an answer came. Who doesn't need that? I don't care what religion. I don't care if you're atheist. I don't care any of that. It comes down to we all need to reach out and get some help. And that's really what that video is all about.
So awesome. Yeah. And where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is at TSInspires. And I have a website, toddinspires.com. And I also have a podcast. I call it a Belief Cast. It's on all the major platforms out there. You can check it out there. I've done over 365 episodes now, and six years, and it's crazy. It's how that's cranking, and I love it. And so yeah, they can check out all those areas, and you can get a hold of me in any of those ways.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, we are so honored to be able to hear from you today, and more than anything, grateful to be able to know you in person. And your story is seriously life-changing. So thank you for all you do, and I hope that was something beneficial for you guys back at home, and much love. And anyone that needs help, the invitation is be vulnerable and make it happen, and it will be the best decision that you ever choose. And once again, we love you, your life legacy. And Todd Sylvester, thank you for this great podcast.
Thanks, Jackson. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
Perfect.